Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who. Last time around we had Boomtown. What was that one about?
Well, it was the return of the last remaining Slitheen, and she had risen to some position of power in Cardiff.
Yeah.
And had approved a nuclear power plant, but the whole idea was that the power plant would go wrong and it would blow up and open the rift, the Cardiff Rift or whatever they called it.
Yeah.
Which would carry out their initial plan. But she got found out by the Doctor and Mickey.
Yeah.
And Rose and Captain Jack. And then it became a very weird kind of intense episode on the difference between justice and mercy. And I had wondered for a while why it was called Boomtown, because here in Oklahoma City we associate that with the name of our town, because literally the day before the Oklahoma land run in 1889, there were about 200 people living in what was called Oklahoma Station. 24 hours later, there were 12,000 people living in what was then known as Oklahoma City. So I think of Boomtown, but realized Boomtown in that she was trying to blow up the town in order to, make money for herself and her family.
Yeah. So, well, not even that. She needed the explosion just to leave, because that was pretty much all she had left, was just this cosmic surfboard that could take her away, but she didn't have any other ship or anything. So yeah, that's pretty much where we left off. That's pretty much that. We don't really have much else. We've got the penultimate episode of the season, which is, it's good, and it's almost a little bittersweet, because that means this season's coming to an end soon, and it just kind of sucks, because we want more of Eccleston.
Yeah.
Maybe someday in the far future, when the current staff of Doctor Who, particularly Russell T Davies, is gone, maybe Chris will come back to the TV show. Until then, there are the audio dramas, if you're brave enough to do those, which most Doctor Who fans are. We're not. Honestly, I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get into reading more manga, and that is incredibly difficult, just finding the time to sit down and read. Yeah. It's different from, because I'll take the time to play video games, but I can generally have other things on while I play my video games, especially because all my systems are handhelds, so I can just play a video game and watch YouTube and stuff. You can't really do that while you read, so...
And I may have mentioned this, during the pandemic, I read more than a dozen books, including Count of Monte Cristo. Read that all the way through. But since we took this job at the theater, I think I've read one book, because we're busy producing, and I directed 2 shows, and now I'm in one. And it will close tomorrow, fortunately. So up next is the original John L. Balderston and Hamilton Dean version of Dracula. So we're just producing that.
I didn't know you read through all of The Count of Monte Cristo.
Yes, yeah. It was after we watched the
anime. Still a great anime.
I realized that I had never read it all the way through. I'd read The Three Musketeers, but not Count of Monte Cristo, so I went ahead and read that one.
Yeah, so I'd also just recommend reading The Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
As much as I will recommend the anime... Okay, if you have no idea what The Count of Monte Cristo is, the anime is not a great place to start. But either read the book, or watch a movie and then read the book. I don't know, all the movies are different. We talked about all this last week.
And by the way, I can say this now because by the time this airs, we will have announced our next season. But I'm going with another literary classic to open the season in February of next year. We're doing The Scarlet Pimpernel. So, that'll be fun.
Yeah. I wonder if that has a graphic novel. I'm really trying to get in on reading classic literature as graphic novels. In fact, yesterday I recorded an episode of The Sopranos, and I ended up talking about Dante's Inferno. Normal stuff you talk about on The Sopranos. And I actually looked up in the middle of the discussion. I was like, I wonder if there is a graphic novel version of Dante's Inferno. And sure enough, there's one coming out this November. So I thought maybe I could give that a read.
There's a really good one. I can't remember if you or your brother or your mom gave it to me, but I have a graphic novel of A Christmas Carol, which is really good.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm getting more into those because I'm just not really interested in reading just actual novels. It's incredibly hard for me to do. So,
Now, this is... Talk about those of us who are of a certain age. You're reading graphic novels, but back in the 50s and 60s, there was a comic book series called Illustrated Classics, which was essentially the same thing. They essentially adapted a novel down into 2 or 3 comic books, and then you could read it that way. So it wasn't quite the intense graphics that you have, but more of the 50s and 60s golden age of comics.
Yeah.
But yeah, I read a lot of Classics Illustrated too. So
yeah, I just think, because it's definitely something I wish there would have been more of when I was in school, because you just didn't really get that in school back in the day. And I don't know, maybe they do that now. Yeah. Everything's so different now, but probably not. And it's just like, I just think that'd be a good thing, especially for someone like me who just like looks at all everything, especially when I tried reading Three Musketeers and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. So, anyway, so that's the second week in a row we've talked about books and not Doctor Who. So, I guess we should just jump right into this episode.
Yes, and they've been teasing this literally all season long. This episode's called Bad Wolf, and we've seen graffiti, and last week, one of the... Was it the protests against the nuclear power plant?
No, it was the actual power plant project. It was Bad Wolf in Welsh.
In Welsh, yeah.
So yeah, let's see, maybe, what is the great mystery of this season.
You control Satellite 5.
The mighty Jaguar is the holy hand of Jackson Maxaranfo.
Well, for some reason, I don't remember that recap the first time around.
What's happening?
If they keep changing rules, I'm going to protest. I am. You watch me. I'm going to take the walls.
Would the doctor please come to the diary room? You are live on channel 44,000. Please do not swear.
You have got to be kidding.
Now, was this before the CBS Big Brother, which has been running for a decade at least?
I don't know. Apparently that started in 2000.
Oh.
And it's been running for 26 seasons.
Can't be. This looks like
Android activated!
Can't be Android.
Is this the weakest link?
Droid.
Welcome to the weakest link.
In space.
Here we go.
Why, is there something wrong with what I'm wearing?
It's all very 20th century. Where did you get that denim?
A little place in Cardiff. It was called the Top Shop.
Ah, design classic. But we're gonna have to find you some new colours. Maybe get rid of that Oklahoma farm boy thing you've got going on.
What's a defabricator?
Alrighty.
Okay, defabricator.
No
That's
waste.
exactly what it says on the tin. Am I naked in front of millions of viewers?
Absolutely.
Ladies, your viewing figures just went up.
He's taking it well.
Can't hope. I'm not just some passing traveller. No stupid little transmat gets inside my ship. That beam was 15 million times more powerful, which means this isn't just a game. There's something else going on.
That also crossed time.
Which, in the town traffic calendar, which month comes after who?
Is it Clavido?
No, Pandolf. Rose in maths, what is 258 minus 158?
100.
100.
Just kill me
Correct,
now.
Roderick.
Bank.
Which letter of the alphabet appears in the word dangle but not in the word cloud?
E.
E.
Correct. The Great Cobalt Pyramid is built on the remains of which famous old Earth institute?
Touchdown.
No, Torchwood.
Torchwood.
Agarix. Bitch, you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Okay.
Very dangerous.
Back in 3 minutes. What's that?
Well, only 3
What
minutes
just
for
happened?
advertisements?
There are 60 Big Brother houses all running at once.
How many? 60?
They've had to cut back. It's not what it was.
It's a charnel house. What about the winners? What do they get?
They get to live.
Is that it?
Wasn't that enough?
Eh.
That other contestant, Linda with an eye, she was forcibly evicted for what?
Damaged property.
What? Like this?
No, just not getting this.
Jack, why don't you try doing something?
And now it's time for the face-off.
What does that mean? Do I get to compete with someone else?
No, like I said, face off.
Face off.
Hold on, ladies. I don't want to have to shoot either one of you.
But you're unarmed. You're naked. But that's a compact laser deluxe. Where were you hiding that?
You really don't want to know.
Give me that accessory.
Good job.
Heads up.
When it comes to the final, I want to be up against you. So that you get disintegrated, and I get a stack load of credits. Courtesy of the Bad Wolf Corporation.
What do you mean? Who's Bad Wolf?
At least he gets paid.
The big bad wolf.
Attention all personnel. Bad Wolf 1 descending.
I don't even know how they heard that one.
Bad Wolf.
Come on then, open up.
You're mad. It's like you want to die.
Charges straight into death.
You were here 100 years ago.
Yep.
You're looking good on it.
Moisturise. All sorts of readings.
There's Call My Bluff with real guns. Countdown, where you got 30 seconds, stop the bomb going off. Ground Force, which is a nasty one. Get turned into compost. Wipeout, speaks for itself. Oh, and stars in their eyes. Literally, stars in their eyes. If you don't sing, you get blinded.
And you watch this stuff?
Everyone does. How come you don't?
I never paid for my license.
Oh my god, you get executed for that.
Let them try.
I could come with you.
Maybe you could.
I wouldn't get in the way.
I wouldn't mind if you did. Not a bad idea, Linda with a Y.
This will go over well with
First
Rose.
of all, we've got
You're lords and masters.
Oops. Well, Floor 500 looks marginally better than it used to.
I'm wondering, is the woman hooked up the one we saw in the original one? Is it the same actress? I couldn't really tell.
I don't think so.
Boy, got myself a gun. Well, ladies, the pleasure was all mine. It's the only thing that matters in the end.
Good job.
I've never seen it for real before. Not from orbit. Planet Earth.
What's happened to it?
Oh, it's
It's been like that
beautiful.
since I was born. See that there? That's the Great Atlantic Smog Storm. It's been going 20 years. We get news flashes telling us when it's safe to breathe outside.
So the population just sits there? Half the world's too fat, half the world's too thin, and you lot just watch telly?
10,000 channels, all beaming down from here.
The human race, brainless sheep, being fed on a diet of... Mind you, have they still got that program where 3 people have to live with a bear?
Oh, bear with me, I love that one.
Anyway, the celebrity edition where the bear... Last time I was there, I put it right.
No, but that's when it first went wrong. 100 years ago, like you said. All the news channels, they just shut down overnight.
But that was me. I did that.
There was nothing left in their place. No information. The whole planet just froze. The government, the economy, they collapsed. That was the start of it. 100 years of hell.
Oh my.
Good job.
Captain Jack Harkness.
Linda Moss.
Nice to meet you, Linda Moss.
You mind flirting outside?
I was just saying hello.
For you, that's flirting.
Rose, the oldest inhabitant of the Isop galaxy, is the face of what?
Bo! The face of Bo!
That is the correct answer.
There's really not any other faces. I mean, the face of Bo. You don't get any facier than that.
Rose in history, which Icelandic city hosted Murder Spree 20?
Reykjavik.
Reykjavik?
correct answer is Pola Ventura.
Dang it, you would have been murdered.
I can't have done it! You've lost!
Like, break his ankle before you die.
Rose?
Let's do it.
Time to murder people.
Don't shoot! Oh, don't be so fake. Like I'm never gonna shoot. Captain, we've got more guards on the way up. Secure the exits.
Yes, sir.
You. What were you saying?
But I've got your gun.
Okay, so shoot me. Why can't she answer?
She's, can I put this down?
If you want, just hurry up.
Thanks.
You're not holding us hostage, and open the door and let us out. The staff are terrified.
That's the same staff who execute hundreds of contestants every
That's
day.
not our
Yeah?
fault. We're just doing our jobs.
And with that sentence, you just lost the right to even talk to me. Now back off!
But they were just following orders.
I was only following orders.
They can't hear me. My masters listen, but they can't hear me now. The sun is so bright.
Who are your masters?
Inside my head, the name is forbidden. They control my thoughts.
You'll want to watch this. Linda, could you stand over there for me, please?
I just want to go home.
It'll only take a second. Could you stand in that spot quick as you can?
Poor
Everybody
Linda.
watching?
Dragged into all this.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
But you killed her.
What do you think?
She got better.
The hell was that?
Dr. Rose is still alive!
But where?
On the planet Scarrow, no doubt.
Help me.
No.
Oh, my masters.
Ugh.
For I've brought your destruction.
Captain Jack Harkness, by the way.
I'm Davish Pavel.
Nice to meet you, Davidge Pavel.
There's a time and a place.
Are you saying that this whole setup's been a disguise all along?
Going way back. Installing the Jagrafess 100 years ago. Someone's been playing a long game.
Oh no. And they have a choir too.
That's impossible. I know those ships. They were destroyed.
200 ships. More than 2,000 on board each one. That's just about 500,000 of them.
500,000 what?
Daleks.
Somehow the Daleks survived.
We have your associate. You will obey or she will be exterminated.
No.
Explain yourself.
I said no.
What is the meaning of this negative?
It means no. I'm gonna save Rose Tyler from the middle of the Dalek fleet, and then I'm gonna save the Earth, and then, just to finish off, I'm gonna wipe every last stinking Dalek out of the sky!
But you have no weapons, no defenses, no plan.
Yeah. And doesn't that scare you to death?
Now you can't predict
Rose,
it.
Yes, Doctor?
I'm coming to get you.
The doctor will be exterminated.
Oh no, flying Dalek. Oh, there's so many of them. Oh. I think people said there were. People said on two-parters they don't show the next time until after the credits. They lied to me. It's fine. All we saw is there are Daleks in the next episode.
Okay, so it's not the Master.
It's not the Master.
All right, but the twist here, of course, is all season long, he's been talking about how all the Daleks were exterminated. She even said, I saw you die. You were the last one. And apparently they've been lying to us.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. We just... We didn't know. I mean, to be fair, he thought they were all gone. Then they found the one in 2012, and then that one was gone. And he was doubly sure that time that they were all gone, but there's just the one little fleet that survived, basically. So, I also find it funny that the Daleks have finally figured out to take a hostage because the Doctor has companions, and he didn't really have those during the Time War, so here, we'll take a hostage. And immediately he just says, no, we're not doing this. I'm going to save her, and that's going to be that. And they are all terrified because they have no idea what he could do. So
yes, they're based on a specific kind of logic, and as we have learned from science fiction for the last 150 years, the only way to defeat something logical like that is by doing something completely illogical, because if it does not make sense in the logical sequence, then they have a very difficult, if not impossible, time dealing with it.
Yeah, and no one is more illogical than the Doctor is. So that's why he's their greatest enemy. So, but we have the return to Satellite 5, which I kind of wish they didn't show the preview at the beginning. They did, it's the same thing they did last episode with the Slitheen, but it's like I kind of wish they just didn't do it. I don't remember them doing that when I first watched this, but granted, that was a long time ago. So,
and did you watch it then on DVD like we're doing now?
No.
Oh, so maybe the broadcast or whatever you watched before didn't have the.
Maybe. I don't know when these DVDs came out. Well, I guess so, because I watched that in 2018. It's a long time ago.
A long time ago.
I watched this season in 2018, and I don't think the Jodie era had started yet. And on all my DVDs that I have, the logo they specifically have for Doctor Who is the Jodie era logo. So I think these DVDs must have come out later, but I don't know. I don't know if that really, or maybe I'm just misremembering, because again, it was 2018. That was a very, very long time ago. So,
yeah, I had, I told you just before we started, I had a memory come up on Facebook today on the Myth Makers. It said we recorded that 4 years ago. So
yeah, so it's been quite a while. We've been doing this, I mean, pretty much since 2018, with the exception of breaks and everything. I have watched an episode of Doctor Who every single week since February of 2018. And it's weird because I feel like I'm not a hardcore fan of Doctor Who, and yet I probably do more than most hardcore fans of Doctor Who. I literally watch an episode every week. I've watched every episode in existence, and it's just even the reconstructed ones. It's like I'm actually probably in like the top 1% of Doctor Who fans, and I wasn't even trying to do that. Yeah. So
now, when did we record our first one? The one that you invited me to do when we saw the first 4 episodes of Hartnell. Was that 2018?
Yeah, that was 2018, because that was after I finished season 2 of this. So we're not doing it again. We're not going through classic Doctor Who again. But yeah, but that was it. That was around like summer, maybe fall, like towards the middle or end of 2018.
Yeah,
because these seasons, are 13 episodes a pop. Plus, you got Christmas specials and stuff. So yeah, and I think even in that video, I like slightly recapped what happened in the season 2 finale. So don't go watch that until we're past that. So yeah. But anyway, but here, the penultimate episode, the 2-parter finale.
All right. So the first question I have then is, who has been putting all of the hints throughout history?
Yeah.
All right, because the Daleks would not do that themselves, I wouldn't think.
It's a strange thing if the Daleks did that, Because, yeah, this doesn't actually explain Bad Wolf at all. It's just that the Bad Wolf Corporation is just the face, basically, that the Daleks control. But that's the only link we have between Bad Wolf and the Daleks. So, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. I also didn't pick up last time that they also installed the Jagrafess and everything. Like, the Daleks have been working on this plan for centuries, if not like 1,000 years. And it's just this interesting control over the Earth that they have had. Yeah. So, and I guess it makes you question, is like, to what end? Why are they doing all of this?
Yeah.
So
now, and I may have mentioned this before, one of my favorite science fiction novels is Kurt Vonnegut's The Sirens of Titan. And it also has, they call it the chronosynclastic infundibulum, which is where a guide travels through time and space. And as it turns out, all of human history has been guided, just like you're kind of seeing here. And I don't want to give away too much in case you haven't read it. But apparently an alien crash-landed on Titan, which is a moon of Saturn, because of a faulty part in his spaceship. And what he did then is he literally controlled all of human history, literally from the beginnings of the first cells, to get to a point in human history where somebody could accidentally manufacture the correct replacement part that he needed. And then the idea was he would involve this guy in the chronosynclastic infundibulum to get the part to him on Titan.
Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting story. I guess it's kind of dumb, but it like feeds into the whole ancient aliens thing. I mean, I don't think the Daleks go back that far in this story. I think it is just, in the future. Like, the Daleks are not at work like during Rose's time in 2005 and stuff.
The furthest back we've seen the Daleks on Earth, though, wasn't that when is that the evil of the Daleks when they were back in Victorian times?
Yeah, they were in that one.
So we've seen them in Earth's future and Earth's present, but that's the only one I can remember where we saw them in Earth's past.
Yeah, I don't remember too much else, but you're right. They because they were using Victoria's father for something.
Yeah,
I remember there was alchemy involved.
Yeah.
And like changing metals into gold. I don't remember what that actually had to do with the Daleks, other than the Daleks promised them the secret of alchemy. Because I remember that was like that stuck in my memory, because I was like, how do the Daleks know this? And I was like, oh, obviously they're lying to him to get him to work for him. But it's like, but I couldn't remember like what else. But yeah, and that ended with the destruction of Skaro and the death of all the Daleks. So. It's
again.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, at least to the credit of this season, like, I know in the first episode they brought back the Autons, but they also kind of didn't, because like they didn't really acknowledge them. The Doctor didn't really make special mention of it. But other than that, it's like the Daleks are the only thing from Classic Who that is brought back in this season. And if you're gonna do anything, honestly, the Daleks is probably the best thing to go for. So they're so simple and easy to understand. So, and obviously tying that all into the Time War and everything. And it's interesting too, because it's like, I suppose this could technically open the door for like, are there other Time Lords that manage to get out? Like, we see a couple of them, in classic Doctor Who that get more and more prominence, but obviously there's the big question of, is the Master still out there? You could even ask, is the Rani still out there and stuff?
Is the Monk still out there?
Is the Monk still? Yeah, the Monk could still be out there. But it's an interesting thing, because like, I feel like this, like, it's a thing of like, oh, the Daleks, they did escape, they are back, and the Doctor's kind of looking around like, uh-oh. I'm by myself. There's not the rest of the Time Lords to help me on this one. So he's just kind of on his own. Now, granted, most of the time he's on his own anyway. But,
by the way, before I forget, there was also a mention of Torchwood.
There was a mention of Torchwood.
Now, has the Torchwood series started or been planned at this point in the first season of New Who?
It hasn't started. It doesn't start for a little while. I don't know. I don't know if it was planned. It might have just been like they were starting to think about it, because I mean, this is it's so early on, and I would imagine in the first season they were really just trying to make sure that this all worked out, because if it didn't work out, that would have just been the end of Doctor Who forever. But so it's like I imagine maybe once at the end, once everything was starting to really take shape, then RTD was like, maybe we could start thinking about spinoffs or something, or who knows, or maybe that's just set up just for future episodes. So yeah, and we got all the futuristic shows. The Weakest Link with the android.
It makes me wonder if they got the host, whatever her name was, and somebody to actually do the voice.
Maybe. It's entirely possible. And they had Big Brother, 60 different shows of Big Brother going simultaneously, and then the fashion show that Jack... I do kind of like Jack, just... He has no urgency about it. He's just like, well, I'll get some new clothes, and then, if something goes wrong, then I'll do something. So, luckily he had that laser, that gun to help him. So,
yes, we don't ever want to speculate about that gun.
Yeah, so, it is also interesting too, because like this, along with The Long Game, I'm kind of looking at this like, oh, this is getting more and more topical as the years go on. It's like all of this, it's just when they look at it, it's like, oh, look, it's the Earth. And it's like, well, that sucks. It looks like crap. It's like there's the Great Atlantic Smog or whatever. It's like, oh, they tell us every morning if it's, if you're able to breathe outside, if it's safe for that. And it's like, and if you're not doing that, then you're, into the games and everything where you could die and everything. And it's just like, this is getting worse and worse by the year. Like with every passing year, I just look at companies and corporations and everything in our world, and I'm like, oh no, this is getting more topical. So
now, I have to say, again, New Who is proving to be very prophetic, because in the late 60s or early 70s, there was one of the political parties here in the United States that realized that in order to get what they wanted done, which meant that they were going to be putting some very unpopular proposals and projects on the American people, they decided to start with the judicial system, started getting very, very conservative people elected to the judiciary, which then got them, over time, moved up to appeals courts and things like that, until ultimately, in the past 8 years, we now have a very ultra-conservative, very right-wing majority in the United States Supreme Court. It took them 50 years to do it. And a lot of the decisions that this court is handing down have proven to be very unpopular with not just a simple majority, but a massive majority of the American people.
Yeah.
It's like 80%, more than 80% of the people disagreed with the Supreme Court's ruling on overturning Roe v. Wade. So, it is, again, very prescient of New Who that they are looking at things that were happening in the 60s, 70s, basically the entire time that Doctor Who's been on the air, and saying, if we were to project this into the future, where could we see this going? And they're doing a very good job of that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, just like on the social aspect, like with this, it's like, it's interesting, if anything, to watch like the social media war happening in real time. Like, I feel like this will be something that'll be, in the history books in 20, 30 years or something. But like, I mean, recently, it's like Twitter was blocked in Brazil, And I saw a lot of people, I saw a lot of Brazilians on Twitter. They were kind of disappointed, and I get it, but it's like, it's sort of a half and half thing, because it's like, on the one hand, this is a great tool to communicate and all that stuff, and if you're, especially in some other countries, it's like you don't have as many sites as we do in the United States, like we have a lot of places where it's like you can watch all this interesting content. In other countries, you have Netflix and YouTube, and you live with it,
Yeah.
And it's kind of a interesting thing, but it's like just watching like people actually taking a stand against like Twitter, which yes is a great tool for communication and connecting with people. It's also one of the worst things ever invented by mankind, and has only somehow gotten worse, now that new management has been installed.
Well, I read earlier this week that a lot of the advertisers and a lot of the former subscribers are bailing on Twitter now, because there's an exception to free speech. The United States Supreme Court back in the early 1900s basically said you don't have the right to say anything you want. For example, you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater when there's no fire, because you can then be held liable for any injuries or deaths that happen due to the panic that you created by yelling fire. So there are certain limits to free speech. You are certainly allowed to believe anything you want to believe. You are allowed to speak what you believe, unless it infringes upon the rights of others. If you go out in Hyde Park, stand on your soapbox in Hyde Park in London and advocate for the complete overthrow of the government, that's okay, as long as you say, this is what I think. But if you say, I think we need to pick up arms, or here, I'm distributing guns, let's go overthrow the government, that is not free speech. That is sedition, essentially. That's an insurrection. So, I'm very much a person, and I always taught my students, in nearly 30 years of teaching students, that we always talk about our rights. You can't infringe upon my rights. Well, you also have responsibilities, all right? With the rights come the responsibilities. You cannot do things that you consider to be your rights that then infringe on the rights of other people.
Well, and also just the whole thing of, you can't infringe on my rights. Like, okay, what are your rights? Do you know these things offhand? Because, with someone like Elon Musk, like with the advertisers, he looks at them because he thinks he's some kind of a rock star, and he's like, well, we don't need you guys. If you're gonna be so terrible to us, we don't need you. And then they leave, and then it's like, you do realize that's where the money came from, right? It's like you did kind of need those.
He doesn't need the money, but my understanding is that Twitter has lost money ever since he took it over. And again, don't quote me on this, but I thought I also read that he was considering a lawsuit against some of the advertisers who have bailed on Twitter. And it's like, he doesn't seem to understand. That is their right. They're considering it their responsibility not to advocate for misinformation as free speech, and they said, we're no longer going to advertise on your channel. And he's going, oh, you can't do that, wah, wah, wah. Yes, they can do that. That's the whole point. You have infringed on what they can feel their rights are, therefore they are removing their product from your network.
Yeah, and I'm going to tie this back into Doctor Who in just a second, but I will say, it's also the other thing of, like, with people, especially like with Elon Musk, it's like, why aren't you smart? Like, why don't you understand some of this stuff? Because I look at some of these stuff like with these corporations, and it's like, some of the things you're doing, okay, yes, you're getting profit in the short term. In the long term, though, what are you doing? Because it's like, I remember I was watching this video about like AI and stuff like that, but at a point he said, all these companies, it really seems to be, it's like, we're going to make sure that we get rid of all the people. We're just going to replace them with robots so that no one gets the money, and we'll have all the money. And it's like, okay, but if the people don't have the money, then who's going to pay you for these services? Like, nobody can pay you at that point, and then everything just collapses. Yeah. And the way I'm tying this back into Doctor Who is, at least you have villains like the Daleks who are smart. They've been, doing this for like 1,000 years, and even with the Doctor coming in and, destroying Satellite 5, if anything, that just helped the Daleks' plan move even forward. Yeah. So...
Oh, and by the way, again, been reading a lot in my spare time this week. I get a couple of days off from the show. Elon Musk likes to remind people, he's the power behind Tesla and SpaceX and all this other stuff. But he didn't invent electric cars. He didn't improve electric cars. There were two other engineers, entrepreneurs, who basically created Tesla, and then Musk simply bought it, just like he did Twitter, and now he is the face of Tesla when he had literally nothing to do with it. And the same thing with SpaceX. Yeah. Thousands of people put together the SpaceX program. He had no actual thought or design put into it. All he's doing is providing the money. So yeah, people think that he's a genius. He really is not.
It sounds very much like a Steve Jobs situation. I would like to give Steve Jobs a little bit more credit than I would Elon Musk, but it sounds kind of like the same thing, where it's like there was a segment on Conan where Bill Burr was talking about that, and he's like, I don't get the hype for Steve Jobs. I think he just had someone who was like, I just want all that music on this phone. Get on it. Yeah. And it's just like, did he actually sit down and do all of that? And Elon Musk is kind of the same way.
But Jobs and Wozniak and one other guy, I can't remember who it was. It may have been Bill Burr, but they are the ones who actually started the Apple company, and then from there, once they started making money off that, yes, he was less involved with the actual nuts and bolts of it, and more of he was the idea man rather than the mechanical.
Yeah, it's like I could at least give him a little credit of that, because Elon Musk doesn't have that much credit going for him.
Yeah.
So he has also just like ruined the word Tesla. It's like I was watching something and they mentioned a Tesla coil, and I just like get this like nervous tick, and I'm like, no, wait a minute. A Tesla coil as in the actual man Tesla who invented that. It's like we gotta separate that somehow. Anyway. And actually fully bring it back to Doctor Who. To fully bring it back to Doctor Who, I do like also that, they talked about this last episode where it's like, oh, now the Doctor has consequences for what he's done, He can't just blow up the Slitheen and leave. Now he's back and he has to deal with, Margaret and, waiting all that time to basically send her to her death. And I like how this follows up on that really well, where it's like, he came in, he saved the day and defeat the evil news corporation that was controlling, all the news on Earth. And then 100 years later, everything is worse. And it's just like, because there's a line, this is a hilarious reference, but there's a line in Jackie Chan Adventures where I think they defeated one of the villains at the end of the season. And his uncle says, who told you to defeat the great evil and like get rid of him? Now you've just left a hole for an even greater evil to come in and fill. And that's exactly what happens in the next season. And that's essentially what it is, that he got rid of, Satellite 5 and the news program and everything. And the entire government collapsed. Everything collapsed. The economy collapsed. All the news collapsed. There was nothing going on. And so, if anything, that probably just accelerated the Daleks' plan. Even though they were already there controlling everything, that just made it even easier for them to completely control the planet.
And, we all, not always, but many times reference other science fiction series. Star Trek had their most successful movie when they brought back Khan, because Kirk said, you consider yourself a superior being. We're going to put you and your family and your followers on this planet, and you can make it into the great society that you always thought it would. And then they left. And 15 years later, nobody bothered to check on them to find out that there was this literally solar system-wide collapse of one of the planets blew up, and it laid waste to them, and that, just turned them even further against Starfleet, in particular Kirk. And so, yes, there are always consequences to your actions, and it's probably a good idea to go back and say, hey, you know what? We should go check on Khan and see how he's doing, see if he needs any help. But nobody ever does, or rarely ever does.
Yeah, so it's like, it's an interesting idea, especially too, because it's like, they've said, especially in this season, they've really gone with the whole, the Doctor, he just travels and, he helps out where he can, but that's pretty much it. He even says, like, he's actually after a quiet life, strangely enough. It just doesn't really happen all that much. But I feel like that's almost not really a criticism, but just sort of a commentary on classic Doctor Who, where because of the formatting and everything, and just where they wanted to go with each episode, it really was just the Doctor shows up, something terrible probably happens, hopefully he saves the day and not many people die, and then he leaves. And there was never really a going back to that. They got a little bit of that, like with some later companions, like, them sort of having story arcs, kind of Tegan, Turlough, and then Ace, but it's like, but you didn't really have too much of going back, seeing what happened after the TARDIS landed. So I like introducing that at the beginning of this new revival series, like what does happen when the Doctor leaves, and is it good, is it bad, because they even show in the recap where the woman from that episode was like, well, you'll have to stay and explain everything, and he's like, well, you can explain everything. He's like, I don't think they'll believe me. And it's like, well, they might be willing to believe anything at this point. So, and he just walks off, and it's like, that was probably too much to leave to her when she was barely keeping up with him in that episode. So I don't know, it's kind of an interesting thing, just like the consequences of the Doctor's actions, and probably, if anything, does kind of make you understand why the Time Lords don't actually interfere that much, because they have no idea what could happen. So
now, I vaguely remember three series. One was the Third Doctor. He landed on the planet where they were visiting with the royalty there, and the little
Celadon. Yeah, you did also get a follow-up episode.
And then there was one on an ark where they landed on an ark the first 2 episodes, and then the last 2 episodes were like 200 years in the future.
Yeah, that was a First Doctor episode. I think it was just called the Ark.
Yeah.
And the first 2 episodes, and then they leave, and then the TARDIS just takes them to like 200 or 100 years in the future, and you do kind of see how all of that has changed.
And then, of course, the Mara is a kind of a follow-up.
Kinda, yeah. You get to see how the Mara affects other nations and stuff. It's not too much a follow-up on the Kinda themselves, but yeah, it is sort of like that. So it's not like it was completely missing in classic Doctor Who, but that wasn't a main focus. It was just, let's put the Doctor in a new, interesting location and see what happens, So, and part of the consequences is the momentary death of Rose. Before they figure out that it's just a transmat beam. I mean, for a bit, it's that, he lost her for a little bit, and that weighed on him for a while. Yeah. So
now, Linda with a Y was also brought back. Does that mean that all of the people that we watch get disintegrated in the Big Brother and the Weakest Link were also only transmatted somewhere else? Because they never explain that.
I think they do imply that it was never a disintegrator beam. It was just a transmat beam. It's just that we don't know where the rest have been transported to. So we don't know what the Daleks have been doing with them all this time. All we know is that Rose and the Controller were specifically taken to the Dalek main ship, and Rose specifically to be a captive. So, and that's the other thing too, is that, like, there is that moment where, the Doctor is happy again because he knows Rose is still alive, and then that immediate dread upon seeing the ships, like, yes, she's alive, but things are still really bad right now. So, and I like even Jack recognizes the Dalek ships, which is pretty interesting. And I think there have been a couple episodes where a couple classic episodes where we see the Dalek spaceships, and I think they were just the flying saucer. So I like they update the look a little bit too.
I especially remember the movie, the flying saucers they had there.
Yeah.
And the Seventh Doctor, when the one landed at Coal Hill School.
Yeah. So I think that one was less of the flying saucer look, but still, still kind of in that same design space. So, Yeah, that's a lot. That was a lot we talked about.
Next time, what's the name of the next episode? Or that's on the other DVD?
It is on the next DVD. I mean, I could go ahead and tell you. The next episode is called The Parting of the Ways. So, and that'll round out season 1. And then it's Christmas time.
All right.
So,
now explain to me again. The Christmas episode, is Eccleston in that? Or is Parting of the Ways exactly that the Doctor leaves and regenerates into the 10th Doctor? Oh, never mind. Yeah, I'll find out next week.
I mean, you're smart. You can figure it out. So you can figure it out based on my non-response. But we will also. We're not going to do this too often, but especially early on, there were a lot of mini episodes, about 4 or 5 minutes long, and we won't watch most of them because they're just not really necessary. But there is one between the finale and the Christmas special that's really good, and so we'll watch that one. It means I need to find it, and I need to, if I remember right, the audio on that, because I think it was like it was done for like the BBC charity thing, and so it was just a quick little mini-sode in the TARDIS. And if I remember right, though, the audio on that is like all over the place. So I need to I'll go in and fix all of that. If I had known that they were going to start this episode with the recap, I might have gone in and just cut that out completely. So I might try to keep an eye on that and see if they do that more. I don't remember them doing that too much, with the exception of they'll do a recap at the beginning of a second part of a story. But with this one and the last one, I kind of think I kind of wish you didn't see the recap, and especially with last episode, it's they immediately go into the Slitheen that's still there. But with this one, it's a while before you realize that you're supposed to realize that it's Satellite 5. So, but yeah.
And I remember, didn't we watch the Night of the Doctor, where
the
8th Doctor transitions into the War Doctor?
Yeah. That's another important mini-sode to watch. So yeah, probably those two. I really don't think there's much else we'll watch in terms of the mini-sodes. So, I mean, I'm still debating whether or not we're gonna watch the spin-offs, Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures. So, I don't know. We can, but
we don't have to react to them. We can just watch them.
Maybe. I don't know. It's just the thing of, and all the comments are going to know this, but it's the question of, do I actually want to watch Torchwood with you or not? The Sarah Jane Adventures I really liked, but that one was more aimed at kids, even more than Doctor Who is. Whereas Torchwood got the what do they call it at the BBC? The watershed time slot, which is 10 p.m. so they could cater more towards the adults, for better and certainly for worse. In Torchwood is all over the place, but I don't know. We can it would be funny at least. So, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
And next time we will have the season 1 finale. But that is basically it. We're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of our modern Doctor Who reactions, as well as another playlist for all of our classic Doctor Who reactions if you want to go check those out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.